Have you ever felt stuck, like no matter how much you pray, work, or dream, nothing seems to change? Imagine if the missing ingredient in your life is as simple as adding just a pinch of salt. Not to your food, but to your faith, your mindset, and your daily walk. Today, I want to show you how putting salt in your shoes can transform your entire life. My friends, life can feel tasteless when we walk without hope, without vision, without determination. Salt, in the Bible, is not just for flavor, it's for preservation, strength, and covenant. When your shoes carry the salt of faith, perseverance, and prayer, every step becomes a miracle in the making. That's why you must listen closely today, because if you truly grasp this principle, you will never walk the same path again. You will walk in transformation. When we think about salt, most of us imagine the small white grains that sit on our kitchen tables, waiting to be sprinkled onto a meal. Without salt, food can be bland, tasteless, and unsatisfying. But when just the right amount of salt is added, the entire meal comes alive. The flavors that were hidden beneath the surface suddenly burst forth, and the dish becomes something memorable. Life is much the same way. Without salt in your shoes, without faith, perseverance, and prayer in your daily steps, your journey can feel bland, meaningless, and uninspired. You may find yourself waking up, going through routines, living day after day without joy, without zest, without energy. But when you add salt to your shoes, when you decide to season your steps with determination, vision, and trust in God, suddenly life begins to reveal its hidden flavors. Struggles become meaningful, trials carry lessons, and ordinary paths are transformed into extraordinary testimonies. Think for a moment about a meal without seasoning. You can cook it with the best ingredients, serve it on the finest plates, and present it in the most elegant way. But if it lacks salt, people will taste it once and push it aside. In the same way, a life without faith and perseverance may look beautiful on the outside. Success, wealth, status, appearance. But deep inside it feels tasteless. People try to fill that emptiness with entertainment, possessions, or achievements, yet the flavor is missing. That flavor only comes when you allow salt to enter the walk of your life. Just as salt enhances flavor, faith gives meaning to suffering, patience gives depth to struggles, and prayer gives sweetness to victory. Salt does not remove the food, it enhances it. Similarly, putting salt in your shoes does not take away the path you must walk. It enhances the very journey. Many of us pray for difficulties to vanish, for mountains to be removed, for deserts to become gardens overnight. But sometimes God does not remove the path. He seasons it. He puts salt in your shoes so that every step, even on rocky ground, is filled with divine meaning. That is why people can look back on seasons of hardship and say, I grew the most during that time. My faith deepened. My character matured. My vision became clearer. What looked tasteless at first became rich in flavor because salt was added to the journey. Consider the story of a young athlete. His dream was to grow taller, stronger, and faster so he could play at the highest level. His mother prayed daily for his growth, but she also told him something profound. Put salt in your shoes and pray. She was not talking about literal salt alone. She was teaching him that prayer, hard work, and perseverance season the walk of destiny. Every practice, every setback, every long night of training was a step with salt in his shoes. Eventually, that young man grew not just in height, but in determination, in resilience, in character. His life gained flavor because he learned to season his steps with effort and faith. You see, salt is small, but its impact is enormous. It only takes a pinch to change an entire dish. In your life, you may think your faith is too small, your prayer too weak, or your efforts too insignificant. But when you sprinkle even a little salt into your steps, the entire journey transforms. A single prayer spoken in tears, a single act of perseverance when quitting looked easier, a single moment of choosing faith over fear. These small grains of salt shift the taste of your destiny. Don't underestimate the power of little steps seasoned with salt. Think also of how salt works invisibly. When you add it to food, it dissolves, and you can't always see it, but you can taste its effect. Faith works the same way. You may not always see the changes right away. You may walk through seasons where your prayers seem to dissolve into silence, your efforts appear unnoticed, and your sacrifices seem invisible. But keep walking with salt in your shoes. Though you may not see it, others will taste the difference. Your character will be stronger, your spirit more alive, your path more flavorful. The invisible work of faith becomes visible in the transformation of your life. Sometimes people ask why life has to be so difficult, why we must walk through trials at all. The answer lies in flavor. Without the bitter, we cannot appreciate the sweet. Without the struggle, we cannot value the victory. Salt in your shoes makes even the bitter steps valuable, because it draws out hidden lessons, hidden strength, hidden joy. The blandness of routine, the dryness of waiting, the bitterness of pain, all these are seasoned by salt so that the end result is rich and fulfilling. Salt also awakens hunger. When you eat something salty, it makes you crave more. It makes you want to drink deeply. When your life is seasoned with salt, it awakens in you a deeper hunger for purpose, for destiny, for God Himself. Without salt, life's journey leaves you complacent, satisfied with mediocrity, willing to settle for less. But when your shoes carry salt, every step awakens a new desire to go further, to climb higher, to seek more. You begin to hunger for growth, for meaning, for transformation. Imagine walking through life without salt in your shoes. Steps become heavy, paths feel meaningless, victories seem empty. But put salt in your shoes, and every step is alive with purpose. A long day of labor becomes a testimony of perseverance. A season of loss becomes an altar of deeper faith. A valley of tears becomes the ground of new beginnings. Salt makes the ordinary extraordinary. It does not always change the path beneath your feet, but it changes the way you experience that path. The world is filled with people walking without salt. They are chasing after money, status, and pleasure, yet their souls remain unsatisfied. They walk on shoes of vanity, shoes of pride, shoes of emptiness. But those who walk with salt in their shoes shine differently. Their lives have depth, flavor, meaning. Even when storms hit them, they stand with strength. Even when trials surround them, they walk with hope. People look at them and say, there's something different about the way they live. That difference is the salt. Salt is not glamorous. It doesn't look like gold. It doesn't sparkle like diamonds, and it doesn't carry the fragrance of perfume. Yet it is essential, powerful, transformative. In the same way, perseverance may not look glamorous, faith may not shine like wealth, prayer may not smell like success, but these are the salts of life. Without them, your journey is bland. With them, your journey becomes extraordinary. Every step you take with salt in your shoes testifies that life is not meant to be tasteless. It is meant to be seasoned, full of richness, full of purpose. And when others see the way you walk, they too will begin to crave the salt that flavors your path. Salt has always been more than seasoning. For centuries, people depended on salt to keep food from spoiling, to preserve what was valuable and give it longevity. In ancient times, when there were no refrigerators, salt was the difference between hunger and survival, between waste and provision. What salt did for food, faith and perseverance do for the soul. Without them, the heart decays under the weight of fear, compromise, and temptation. But when you walk with salt in your shoes, when you season your steps with integrity, with prayer, with divine wisdom, your life is preserved from the corruption that surrounds you. The world is full of forces that seek to erode the human spirit. Discouragement eats away at dreams. Bitterness corrodes relationships. Fear spoils courage. Temptation rots character. Many people begin life with vision, hope, and passion, but over time, without the preserving power of salt, they wither. They allow the atmosphere of the world to seep into their hearts. They compromise what once mattered deeply. They settle for less because decay has taken root. Yet, salt is God's gift to prevent this slow decline. Salt in your shoes is the choice to walk in integrity when no one is watching, to guard your mind from negativity, to preserve your spirit from the pollution of doubt and sin. Think of how salt works against decay. Meat left alone spoils quickly, but when salt is rubbed into it, it resists the process of rotting. In the same way, when your life is seasoned with prayer, when your mind is renewed by God's word, when your decisions are flavored by faith, corruption loses its grip. You live in a world that spoils, but you are not spoiled by it. You walk among temptation, but it does not consume you. You face pressure to give up your values, but you stand firm. Salt in your shoes keeps you whole when everything around you is falling apart. Many people begin their journey well but end poorly because they never learned the secret of preservation. They run quickly at first, full of fire and passion, but when trials hit, when disappointments pile up, when opportunities for compromise come knocking, they lose the salt. Their steps become heavy, their faith diluted, their integrity fractured. The enemy does not always attack with great storms. Sometimes he simply waits, letting the slow rot of discouragement, pride, or temptation erode your heart. That is why you need salt every single day. Not once, not occasionally, but daily. Just as food needs salt before it is stored, your spirit needs salt before you step out into the world. Salt also symbolizes stability. A covenant of salt in Scripture meant something unchanging, enduring, permanent. When you walk with salt in your shoes, your steps are not easily swayed by culture, by opinions, by fleeting pleasures. You remain steady in your convictions. Your life is preserved not only from external corruption, but from the instability of constantly shifting values. The world changes, but your principles remain seasoned with salt. This stability is rare. Many are tossed about by every new trend, every shifting wind, every loud voice. But those who walk with salt remain unshaken. Think of a family that chooses to walk with salt in their shoes. While others around them compromise for convenience, they hold to values of honesty, respect, and love. While others decay in bitterness, they preserve joy and forgiveness in their home. Over time, while other families break apart, theirs is preserved, seasoned, held together by salt. The difference is not luck or chance. It is the deliberate decision to carry salt into every step. Salt in your shoes also protects against the decay of hopelessness. Life can wear you down. Dreams delayed, prayers unanswered, struggles unrelenting. These can rot the soul with despair. Yet when you choose to season your steps with salt, you preserve hope. Salt keeps your heart from spoiling under the weight of waiting. It keeps your vision alive, even in barren seasons. It whispers that promises are still true, that delay is not denial, that purpose is not lost. Without salt, the heart surrenders to despair. With salt, it endures. Salt also has a cleansing effect. When rubbed into wounds, it stings, but it prevents infection. Preservation is not always comfortable. Sometimes carrying salt in your shoes means walking away from shortcuts, resisting easy temptations, choosing painful honesty over convenient lies. It may sting in the moment, but it preserves your destiny from far greater infection later. Better to feel the sting of salt now than the rot of compromise later. Many resist the discipline of salt because it burns at first, but they forget that its purpose is protection. Consider how quickly things spoil when left unguarded. A piece of fruit left unattended rots within days. A heart left unguarded by prayer, a mind left unguarded by truth, a life left unguarded by faith. These two decay quickly. Salt is not an option, it is a necessity. Just as you would never leave valuable food unpreserved, you cannot leave your spirit unseasoned. Each morning as you put on your shoes, you must decide, will you walk with salt or will you risk decay? Salt in your shoes also influences those around you. In ancient markets, people knew the difference between food preserved by salt and food that had spoiled. The preserved food was valuable, desirable, trustworthy. In the same way, when your life is preserved by salt, others notice. They see your integrity when others are corrupt. They see your peace when others are anxious. They see your hope when others despair. And they are drawn to the preservation in your life. They want to know what keeps you whole in a world that spoils. Your life becomes a testimony simply because it resists decay. Sometimes you may not even realize how much salt is preserving you. You may look at your struggles and think you are barely holding on. But the fact that you have not given up, that you have not surrendered to bitterness, that you are still walking at all, is proof that salt is at work. Without it, you would have decayed long ago. Preservation often works silently, unseen, until years later when you look back and realize how many storms you survived, how many temptations you resisted, how many moments of despair you overcame. The salt in your shoes kept you standing. In a world where corruption spreads quickly, where values erode daily, where integrity is rare, choosing to walk with salt is radical. It sets you apart. It marks you as different. While others compromise for gain, you preserve your soul for destiny. While others spoil under the weight of temptation, you remain whole. While others decay in hopelessness, you walk with endurance. Salt is not glamorous, but it is powerful. It is not loud, but it is lasting. And those who walk with it live preserved lives that shine as examples in a world of decay. Salt has a unique quality that goes beyond preservation or flavor. When it is added to food, it not only enhances taste, but also makes people thirsty. You can eat a full plate of food and feel satisfied, but if it contains enough salt, your thirst will rise, urging you to drink deeply. This simple truth carries a powerful spiritual parallel. When you walk with salt in your shoes, your life awakens thirst in others. The way you live, the way you endure, the way you shine amidst darkness, causes people around you to crave what you have. They may not fully understand it, but something inside them longs for the same source that sustains you. Human beings are constantly thirsty, but not always aware of it. They chase after wealth, power, fame, or pleasure, thinking these things will quench their thirst. Yet the more they consume, the drier they feel inside. Their souls cry out for meaning, but they pour in distractions instead of water. When they encounter a person who walks with salt in their shoes, someone whose life is seasoned with hope, faith, joy, and resilience, they recognize something different. That difference awakens their thirst. They may not know how to describe it, but they sense that you have found a well that never runs dry. Think of a traveler walking through a desert. The sun scorches, the sand burns, the journey is long. Suddenly, this traveler meets another person walking the same desert, but this one is steady, calm, and refreshed. His steps are not heavy, his spirit is not weary, and his eyes are not hopeless. Naturally, the first traveler will wonder, what keeps him so alive in such a dry place? That question is thirst awakened. In the same way, when your life carries the salt of perseverance, prayer, and divine joy, people walking through their deserts of despair will notice. They will crave the living water that sustains you. Salt in your shoes is not just for you. It is for the world that watches. Many people underestimate how much influence they carry. They think their quiet acts of faith are insignificant, their simple integrity unnoticed, their perseverance hidden. But every step seasoned with salt leaves a trail. Others are watching. Family, coworkers, friends, even strangers. And though you may not realize it, your life is stirring thirst in them. Your patience in suffering, your peace in chaos, your kindness in cruelty, your faith in uncertainty, all these are grains of salt that awaken thirst in the hearts of those who see you. Salt also creates contrast. Without salt, food can feel flat, lifeless, bland. With salt, flavors pop, contrasts are heightened, and the meal comes alive. In the same way, when your life carries salt, it stands out against the blandness of the world. The world without faith tastes flat, routine without meaning, achievement without joy, pleasure without satisfaction. When you walk with salt in your shoes, your life demonstrates that there is something more. That contrast does not condemn others, it invites them. It stirs thirst by showing them what they are missing. Think of a candle burning in a dark room. Its light seems small, but everyone's eyes are drawn to it. Salt in your shoes works the same way. Your steps may seem ordinary to you, but to those in darkness, they shine. They point to something beyond yourself. They awaken questions in hearts that have grown numb. Why do you still smile when life is hard? Why do you still serve when no one thanks you? Why do you still hope when nothing changes? These questions are the voice of thirst, stirred by the salt you carry. This thirst is not about envy, it is about recognition. Deep down, every human soul knows it was made for more. When people encounter a life seasoned with salt, something inside them recognizes the truth. It is as if their spirit says, "This is what I was created for. This is what I long for." Your salt does not force them to drink, but it makes them aware of their thirst. Awareness is the first step to transformation. Salt is also subtle. It does not announce itself loudly, yet its presence is undeniable. A pinch can make a person reach for water without even thinking about it. Your life may not be loud. Your faith may not be shouted. But the salt in your steps can still stir a powerful thirst in others. Sometimes the quiet example of endurance speaks louder than 1,000 sermons. Sometimes a simple act of forgiveness awakens thirst more than grand speeches. Salt works in silence, but its effect is undeniable. Consider the way children learn from parents. A child may not understand prayer, perseverance, or faith at first, but when they watch their mother or father live a life seasoned with salt, it awakens thirst in them. Years later, in their own deserts of struggle, they remember those steps and crave the same wellspring of strength. Salt in your shoes plants thirst in future generations, even before they realize it. Salt is contagious. One person's thirst can spread. When someone close to you becomes thirsty for deeper meaning because of your life, they begin to change. Others notice their change and become thirsty too. A single life with salt in its steps can ripple outward, stirring a wave of thirst that touches communities, workplaces, and families. That is the multiplying power of salt. It begins with one grain, but it seasons many lives. This quality of creating thirst is also a responsibility. Salt that has lost its flavor cannot awaken thirst. If you claim to carry faith but walk with bitterness, if you speak of hope but live in despair, if you talk of peace but walk in conflict, the salt loses its power. The world is not awakened by words alone. It is awakened by the flavor of your steps. The salt in your shoes must be genuine, not pretense. real perseverance, real joy, real faith. These are what stir true thirst in others. Salt that awakens thirst points beyond itself. No one eats salt by itself. Salt is valuable because it makes you hunger and thirst for something greater. Your life should do the same. It should never point to you, but to the source that sustains you. When others see your peace, they should not just admire you. They should thirst for the well that refreshes you. When they taste the salt in your life, they should desire the living water that quenches forever. Walking with salt in your shoes, then, is a calling to live in such a way that others cannot stay indifferent. They may resist at first, but the thirst will remain. They may deny it, but deep down they crave it. They may walk away, but the seed of thirst has been planted, and one day it will rise again. Your salted steps carry this invisible power. You are not only preserving your own soul, not only flavoring your own journey, but awakening the hidden thirst of those who watch, listen, and walk beside you. Life has a way of leaving wounds. Some are visible, like the scars on the body after an accident, but many are invisible, buried deep in the heart where no one else can see. Disappointments, betrayals, failures, and losses create wounds that ache long after the moment has passed. A cruel word spoken years ago can still sting today. A broken promise can still echo in the silence of the mind. The journey of life is full of such wounds, and if left untreated, they can fester. Just as untreated cuts can become infected, untreated emotional and spiritual wounds can poison the soul with bitterness, anger, and despair. Salt, though small and ordinary, carries a strange and powerful quality. It heals. In ancient times, people used salt to cleanse wounds. The sting was sharp, the pain immediate, but it protected the injury from infection and sped the process of recovery. When you walk with salt in your shoes, you carry that same healing quality with you. Your steps, though they may sting for a time, lead toward restoration rather than infection. Salt stings because it touches raw places. That is why healing often hurts. Confronting the truth about a wound is never easy. Forgiving someone who has wronged you feels like pouring salt on a cut. It burns at first. Releasing bitterness is painful because the wound has become part of your identity, and letting it go feels like losing something familiar. Choosing to trust again after betrayal feels dangerous, like exposing yourself to more pain. But this is the sting of salt, and though it hurts, it cleanses. It keeps the wound from rotting in resentment. It prevents the soul from decaying in hatred. It may burn, but it heals. Salt in your shoes means that every step you take is toward healing rather than infection. Instead of letting pain define you, you allow it to refine you. Instead of allowing bitterness to grow, you let forgiveness flow. Instead of ignoring the wound, you treat it with honesty, prayer, and perseverance. Many people avoid this process. They cover their wounds with distractions, pretending they are fine. They drown pain in business, entertainment, or substances. But the wound remains, hidden but festering. Only salt can touch it, sting it, and ultimately cleanse it. Walking with salt in your shoes means you refuse to cover wounds with denial. You choose to season them with truth, however painful. Salt also draws out impurities. When it touches a wound, it pulls out the bacteria and toxins that would otherwise destroy the flesh. In the same way, when your steps are salted with faith and honesty, your wounds are cleansed of lies and negativity. The lie that you are unworthy is drawn out. The poison of self-hatred is pulled away. The toxin of revenge is extracted. What remains is raw but pure, ready to heal. Healing never comes by ignoring the impurities. It comes by exposing them and letting them be drawn out. That is why walking with salt is not always comfortable, but always necessary. Healing is not instant. A wound treated with salt still takes time to close. but it heals cleanly without infection. In the same way, walking with salt in your shoes does not erase pain overnight. The loss is still felt, the memory still lingers, the scar still forms. But the process of healing begins, and with time, wholeness comes. People who walk without salt often carry old wounds that never healed properly. They may smile on the outside, but deep within, infections of anger, bitterness, or fear remain. Their steps are heavy because they walk on infected feet. Those who carry salt, however, may still limp at times, but they walk toward healing with every step. Salt also symbolizes resilience. When wounds are salted and healed, they leave scars that are stronger than the original flesh. A scar is proof that the wound did not destroy you. It is a testimony of survival. Walking with salt means not only healing your wounds, but turning them into testimonies. What once caused you pain becomes a source of encouragement to others. You can tell someone still bleeding, "I've been where you are, and I healed." You can heal too. The scar becomes a story, and the story becomes salt for someone else's wound. Salt in your shoes allows you to bring healing to others. When your own wounds are seasoned with salt, you become a carrier of healing for the people around you. Your words carry weight because they come from experience. Your presence brings comfort because others sense you understand pain. Your forgiveness inspires because it proves healing is possible. In a world filled with hurting people, those who walk with salt are healers. They do not avoid the wounded, they step toward them, bringing the cleansing presence of love, truth, and faith. Salt does not discriminate in its work. It heals small cuts and large gashes alike. Likewise, the healing power of salted steps is not limited to small disappointments, but extends to deep, life-altering wounds. A broken relationship, a betrayal by a friend, the loss of a loved one, the collapse of a dream, all can be seasoned with salt. The sting may be greater, the process longer, but the principle remains: salt heals. The wound, no matter how deep, is not beyond the reach of restoration. It is also important to remember that salt preserves as it heals. A healed wound treated with salt is less likely to be reinfected. The same is true for the soul. When you walk with salt, past wounds become protected places. They no longer reopen easily at every reminder. Instead of collapsing into bitterness when reminded of the past, you stand preserved in forgiveness. Instead of crumbling under fear when facing a similar situation, you stand preserved in resilience. Salt does not erase the memory, but it fortifies the healing so the wound no longer controls you. Many people are searching for healing in places that cannot provide it. They seek escape, not restoration. They seek numbness, not cleansing. But numbness does not heal. It only delays infection. The world offers temporary relief, but only salt provides true healing. That salt is found in walking with faith, forgiveness, and resilience in your shoes. Each step you take with salt is a step away from infection and a step toward wholeness. Others will notice the difference. They will see that while wounds broke some, they built you. While pain poisoned others, it purified you. While bitterness consumed many, forgiveness preserved you. Every step in life leaves marks. Some leave wounds, others leave scars, but salted steps leave healing behind. Where bitterness once ruled, peace is restored. Where anger once burned, calm remains. Where despair once lived, hope rises. Walking with salt in your shoes ensures that even though you are wounded along the way, you do not remain broken. You heal, and in your healing, you become a source of healing for others who are still bleeding. Throughout history, salt has held a sacred place not only in kitchens and marketplaces, but in covenants and promises. In ancient times, salt was used to seal agreements because it symbolized permanence and incorruptibility. Unlike many things that fade, spoil, or decay, salt endures. To enter into a covenant of salt was to declare that the agreement would not be broken, that it would stand firm across generations. When you put salt in your shoes, you are not simply walking with faith or perseverance for today. You are walking in covenant promises that stretch far beyond the moment. Every step you take carries the weight of something eternal, something unshakable, something backed by the God who does not change. Salt in your shoes represents the unbreakable bond between heaven and earth, between divine promises and human steps. The path of life is often filled with shifting circumstances, unstable ground, and broken agreements. People promise and fail. Systems promise and collapse. Emotions promise joy but quickly turn into sorrow. Yet a covenant of salt remains firm. When you season your steps with salt, you are saying, I walk not on the shifting sands of my own strength, but on the unchanging ground of God's covenant. Your shoes carry not only your weight, but the weight of promises that cannot be erased. Think about how fragile human words can be. People say they will stand by you, but when trials come, they walk away. Employers make promises they cannot keep. Friends swear loyalty but vanish in silence. Even the vows we make to ourselves sometimes crumble under pressure. Life without salt in your shoes is a life built on fragile promises. It is a journey marked by disappointment after disappointment, as each broken word erodes trust a little more. But when your shoes are salted with covenant, you walk with assurance. You may not know what tomorrow brings, but you know the one who has promised never to leave you or forsake you. That covenant steadies your steps when everything else is shaking. Salt does not evaporate. If you place it on a surface, it remains. Rain may fall, winds may blow, heat may burn, but salt remains salt. This quality is why it became the symbol of unbreakable covenants. Likewise, when you walk with salt in your shoes, your faith does not vanish under pressure. Trials may come, losses may strike, tears may fall, but covenant promises endure. You can stumble, but the covenant stands. You can doubt, but the covenant remains. You can fail, but the covenant is not broken. This endurance transforms the way you walk, because you know that your steps are carried by something stronger than your weakness. Salt also has a binding quality. In ancient rituals, sharing salt was a way of saying, what is mine is bound to you, and what is yours is bound to me. In walking with salt in your shoes, you declare that your journey is bound to divine purpose. Your steps are not random, they are tied to promises written before time began. When you feel lost, when the road feels meaningless, remember that salted shoes walk in covenant. You are not wandering, you are being guided. Each step, though small, connects to a larger story that is already sealed. Walking in covenant also means you walk with accountability. Salt reminds you that your steps are not just about your own life, but about generations to come. A covenant extends beyond one person. It covers families, communities, nations. When you put salt in your shoes, your faithfulness today preserves blessings for those who follow. Your children, your grandchildren, the people you influence, they all taste the salt of the steps you take now. Just as the covenant of salt in Scripture was a generational promise, your salted walk creates a legacy. Even long after you are gone, others will walk in the preservation of the salt you carried. Salt adds weight to your words. In a world where talk is cheap, promises are broken easily, and commitments are discarded, salt ensures that your word stands. People will trust you because your steps are seasoned with integrity. They will see that when you say something, you mean it. Salt in your shoes strengthens your yes and your no, making them trustworthy. It teaches you to walk carefully because covenant steps are not careless. They are deliberate, measured, filled with integrity. Salt in your shoes also represents alignment. To walk in covenant means your steps align with something higher than yourself. You do not walk according to impulse, emotion, or convenience, but according to promises and principles that endure. This alignment may sometimes cost you. You may have to say no when others say yes. You may have to stand firm when others compromise. You may have to keep walking when others quit. But the covenant of salt strengthens you to remain aligned even when the path is difficult. There is also security in walking with covenant salt. When food was preserved with salt, people did not fear that it would rot. They could rest knowing that what was salted was safe. In the same way, when your life is salted with covenant promises, you walk in security. You may face storms, but your destiny will not rot. You may face setbacks, but your purpose will not spoil. The salt preserves your calling, ensuring that what was promised will come to pass. This security gives you peace in the midst of uncertainty. You do not walk in fear of losing everything, because what is salted is safe. Covenant salt is also a reminder of sacredness. In ancient temples, salt was part of offerings, symbolizing purity and permanence. When you walk with salt in your shoes, your steps become sacred. Ordinary paths, going to work, raising children, facing challenges, become sacred because they are carried in covenant. What looks like daily routine becomes holy ground because salted shoes turn every step into an offering. You no longer see your life as divided between the sacred and the ordinary. Everything becomes sacred because everything is walked in covenant. Salt ensures consistency. Food without salt spoils quickly, but food with salt remains stable. In the same way, walking with salt in your shoes stabilizes your journey. Others may rise and fall quickly, burning bright and fading fast, but you remain steady. People may wonder why you are not swayed by the same winds, why you are not collapsing under the same pressures. The secret is the salt. It keeps you consistent, faithful, enduring, because your steps are seasoned with covenant rather than convenience. Salt in your shoes makes your life dependable. Others can lean on you because they know you will not collapse under pressure. They can trust your word, your character, your faithfulness. In a world of shifting shadows, salted shoes shine as rare examples of integrity. People crave stability, and when they see it in you, they recognize the covenant that guides your walk. Salt in your shoes also speaks of partnership. In many cultures, sharing salt was an act of friendship, of saying, we are bound together. When you walk in covenant salt, you are not alone. Every step is taken with the assurance that you are in partnership with the eternal. You do not walk abandoned. You do not carry the load by yourself, because covenant means companionship. The salt in your shoes whispers with every step that you are walking with someone greater beside you, someone who holds the other end of the covenant firmly in his hands. Salt never loses its essence. It may be ground, scattered, or dissolved, but it remains salt. This is why it is such a powerful symbol of covenant. When you carry salt in your shoes, you are reminded that the promises you walk in cannot be erased by circumstance, diluted by failure, or stolen by time. They remain what they are, unchanging, enduring, incorruptible. Every step you take is salted with permanence. Every path you walk is seasoned with covenant. Your shoes carry more than you. They carry the weight of promises that cannot break, agreements that cannot expire, and destinies that cannot be undone. Salt has a power that far outweighs its size. A single grain can shift the taste of an entire bite, and a small pinch can transform an entire dish. The principle is simple but profound. Salt carries influence. It does not need to be large in quantity to have a noticeable impact. The same is true for life. When you walk with salt in your shoes, Your presence carries transformation into the atmosphere around you. A conversation shifts, a workplace changes, a family dynamic improves, all because your steps are seasoned. The transformation may not come with noise or spectacle, but like salt, it quietly alters the entire environment. Many people underestimate the power of one step. They think they must achieve something grand, make headlines, or move mountains to see change. Yet transformation often begins with something small, an act of kindness, a word of encouragement, a decision of integrity, a moment of prayer. These seem like grains of salt, tiny and almost invisible, but they season the atmosphere in ways you may not even recognize. One act of forgiveness can soften a hardened heart. One moment of courage can inspire a silent crowd. One simple prayer can open a flood of change in a situation that seemed immovable. Salt works quietly but unmistakably. The world is filled with atmospheres that feel bland, heavy, or bitter. Homes marked by tension, workplaces filled with competition and fear, communities weighed down by division. All of these are like meals lacking salt. People live within them, but they find no joy, no satisfaction, no hope. The presence of someone walking with salt in their shoes shifts this. Your very presence can bring peace where there is strife, hope where there is despair, joy where there is sorrow. Just as one pinch of salt can make a pot of food come alive, one salted life can make an environment come alive. Salt does not draw attention to itself. When people eat food, they rarely say, "What good salt?" They talk about how good the food tastes. Salt does not exist to be praised. It exists to transform. In the same way, walking with salt in your shoes is not about drawing attention to yourself. It is not about people praising you for being different. It is about them tasting transformation in their own lives because of your steps. They may not even realize at first that the atmosphere shifted because of you. They may only notice that peace replaced tension, that hope rose where despair lingered. The work of salt is quiet but powerful, unnoticed but undeniable. Salt also carries a preserving influence in the atmosphere. When left unchecked, negativity spreads like rot. A group conversation can quickly descend into gossip. A workplace can become toxic with bitterness. A family gathering can soar with conflict. But one salted step can preserve the atmosphere from complete decay. A kind word halts gossip. A patient response diffuses anger. A spirit of gratitude weakens bitterness. You may feel like you are doing little, but in reality, you are preserving entire spaces with the salt in your shoes. Salt awakens thirst in the atmosphere as well. When people experience your peace, it makes them long for peace in their own hearts. When they see your joy, it awakens their thirst for something deeper than entertainment. When they sense your calm under pressure, it makes them crave stability. Your salted steps stir unseen longings in the environment, shifting what people desire. Suddenly, in a room where hopelessness once ruled, people begin to talk about possibilities. In a workplace where selfish ambition dominated, people begin to consider serving each other. The salt of your steps changes what people crave, altering the direction of entire environments. The power of salt is that it does not take much. A single life can shift an entire generation. A single voice can transform a culture of silence. A single decision can redirect the course of a family. Walking with salt in your shoes does not require you to be the loudest, the most talented, or the most influential by worldly measures. It requires you to be faithful, seasoned, and genuine. Even a small grain can season an entire pot. Even a single step can shift the ground beneath many feet. Salt also teaches patience in transformation. When added to food, it takes time to dissolve and spread evenly. Its work is not always immediate, but it is consistent. Likewise, the transformation your salted steps bring may not always be visible instantly. You may feel as though nothing is changing. The atmosphere may still seem heavy, the people around you still resistant. But salt is working beneath the surface. Over time, the flavor shifts, the atmosphere changes, and people realize something new has emerged. Transformation does not always shout, it often whispers. It is the steady presence of salted shoes that reshapes the environment, little by little. Walking with salt in your shoes also means carrying responsibility. If salt can transform an atmosphere, then you must be mindful of where and how you walk. Your words season conversations, your choices season communities, your actions season generations. Salted steps cannot be careless because they carry influence beyond what you see. Every space you enter is changed, for better or worse, by the salt you carry. This is both a privilege and a calling, to walk in such a way that every place you step becomes more alive, more preserved, more hopeful because you were there. Consider the effect of salt in a storm. When snow and ice make roads dangerous, salt is spread to melt the ice and make the way safe again. Salt transforms treacherous ground into walkable paths. In the same way, when you walk with salt in your shoes, you carry the ability to transform dangerous, hostile, or hopeless environments into places where people can move safely again. A tense conversation becomes manageable. A broken family finds a path forward. A discouraged team regains courage. The salt of your steps melts the hardness and makes new movement possible. Salt also symbolizes purity. It is simple, unadulterated, and incorruptible. Bringing purity into an atmosphere transforms it instantly. When you refuse to engage in corruption, when you stand in honesty, when you live with integrity, your presence cleanses the environment. Even if others resist, the light of purity exposes what is false and elevates what is true. Salted shoes purify atmospheres where deception, greed, or compromise have dominated. Transformation begins not always by what you say, but by what you refuse to dilute. Salt works by contact. It must touch the food to transform it. Likewise, the salt in your shoes must touch the ground where you walk. Transformation does not happen from a distance. It happens when you engage, when you show up, when you are present. Too many people want to see change without contact. They want to remain apart, untouched, uninvolved. But salt does not season from afar. It seasons by presence. When your salted shoes step into broken places, that is when the atmosphere begins to shift. Your contact with the ground you walk on releases the seasoning power of salt. Even in small gatherings, salted steps shift the tone. A single family member who chooses forgiveness can stop years of bitterness. A single worker who brings encouragement can reshape a whole team dynamic. A single student who carries integrity can lift the standard of an entire classroom. It does not require an army. It requires one person walking with salt in their shoes. Just as a meal does not need mountains of salt, the world does not need countless voices shouting at once. It needs faithful walkers who season their steps with salt and release transformation wherever they go. Transformation brought by salt is not always dramatic, but it is lasting. A loud moment may excite, but salt sustains. The atmosphere you season with your salted steps becomes richer, more meaningful, more alive. What was once hopeless becomes hopeful. What was once heavy becomes lighter. What was once bitter becomes palatable. The smallest grains of salt carried in your shoes can shift entire rooms, entire families, entire generations.